So welcome all. Thank you for joining us today for kind of an orienting training for adults to assist our elementary going out program. It's a really important part of our elementary program, allowing our students to take their learning from the classroom and go further out into the world. I'm going to try to make my screen sharing work. Sorry, we don't often spend as much time screen sharing doing things like this. There we go. You'll see, hopefully on the slide, some quote from Maria Montessori. And the real purpose of going out is different than what many of us might have experienced in a traditional field trip if we attended mainstream school. It's not only to experience the world, but it's also to have the child themselves be the one doing that learning, going through the world, bringing in practical life skills as a part of it. Everything from calling and planning the going out to doing the logistics to actually navigating transportation and then interacting with the real world. So thank you for joining us today to learn more. There we go. So we're going to go over today what a going out is, the reasons we do them, and then go into our process for children and adult volunteers, because going outs don't fully work at the elementary level unless we have amazing volunteers to help us. Because one of the big differences between a going out and a traditional field trip is that it's a smaller group of students. And so having adult volunteers is really essential to helping our going out program work. So what is a going out? The purpose of a going out is to have an experience outside the classroom, connected to learning a student's doing inside of the classroom. So for example, we might have, there was a group of students actually this fall in one of our upper elementary classrooms that got really into studying tornadoes, and they were interested in these natural disasters and tornadoes. So they planned a going out to the Minnesota History Center to their tornado simulator exhibit. And so then they were able to not only navigate transportation there, but then ask deeper questions, learn from that, the simulator and the Minnesota History Center information, and then bring that back to the classroom to go much deeper into a topic. What's unique about going out is that in a going out, our students have the independence and responsibility of the planning, logistics, and actually leading the going out. So if you've been on a going out before, if we were in person, this is usually where we do some sharing around of anyone who's been on a going out. But if you have experienced a going out, you know that it can sometimes feel a little uncomfortable as an adult, especially when things don't go as the children have planned. And that is part of the learning, to sit and to wait and to be there for safety. But if they're interpreting the bus route and they're going in the wrong direction, as long as you still have time to get home and there still is that time as an adult to jump in when you need it to be able to return to school in time for the end of the day, they might go in the wrong direction for a while and not make it to their destination. And that's part of the learning as well. It has that practical life piece. So there's a great introduction around going out done by Rising Tide Montessori. And so I wanted to just share that today because she describes it so beautifully. Oh, if it wants to work.
We know that elementary children want to know so much that it's impossible to contain that all in the classroom. And it's also important to remember that they do need concrete experience with things before they explore more abstractly. So for example, if they're learning about leaves, they need to get out and see leaves and see how leaves function in nature. And so Montessori saw these two things: the deep thirst for knowledge that we can't possibly fill the classroom with enough, and this need for sensorial experience. And her response was to offer the children something we call going out, where they can go out of the classroom based on their own interests and needs to find out more. A going out is not a field trip. certainly it is a trip in the field in that very basic sense. But a field trip is generally planned by adults and executed by adults, and the whole class has to come along. In a going out, it comes from the children's own interests based on the research they've been doing or a lesson they've gotten. And we help the children to be able to plan and execute this trip on their own. And because it comes from their interest, it's going to be a smaller group of children who are leaving to explore volcanoes at the Natural History Museum or impressionist paintings at the art museum. These are the types of outings that we can offer to the children that will further their knowledge and that sensorial experience. One important aspect to remember about going out as well is that the children are free to plan these kinds of trips whenever they wish. And so it's not something that is just saved for special occasions, but instead that the children can recognize they have a need and they can fulfill it. And this is really how going out helps to support children's self-construction. During World War II, Dr. Montessori and her son Mario were interned in India, and they spent some time working with elementary children while they were there. And what they saw was how important it was to not simply introduce ideas in the classroom, that they really wanted the children to see those ideas out in reality. And so if they were exploring the work of water, they'd take a little ramble to visit a stream and see the work of water in action. And it's from this sort of spontaneous outing that they were doing in their work in India that going out really emerged. When the children go out, they get to experience and practice interaction with broader society. So yes, they're driven to go out based on an interest or a need. But as they go out, they have this experience of having to talk to other people in the place of business where they're going at the Natural History Museum. They have to pay their entry fee, or they have to ask for directions. All of this gives the children real life experience with real life consequences in a relatively safe and limited environment. You know, under the age of 6, most of children's interactions with broader society have been mediated by an adult. And so what we want to give the children some experience with is being able to navigate social interactions on their own. They're doing plenty of that in the classroom with their peers, but giving them these little tastes of broader social interaction really helps them build that social independence that they'll be working more solidly toward in the third plane of development. Going out is a critical part of cosmic education, of what we offer children in the second plane of development. They need to have that freedom and opportunity to go out. It is developmentally appropriate for them. It is an optimal way to support their self-construction. But it takes some careful planning on the part of the adults and the children. So we will explore the details and the considerations we have to take as we plan and implement a strong going out program in our schools.
All right, so what she talked about in terms of those different pieces of going out, a lot of those are listed here in terms of why we do going out. And we have a very strong going out program here at Great River School. We have steps children take beforehand for planning. As part of that piece, there are steps that they take and scripts for calling volunteers, for getting everything approved, for organizing all the parts, and then for reflecting and sharing out at the end. So why do we do going outs? Going out to develop independence and responsibility as students are planning and executing the logistics of their trips. They gain a lot of confidence. And they also practice the flexibility of how to navigate the world outside the classroom. I had a group of students come to me at the end of last week from a lower elementary classroom, and they were seeing the confidence they had, needing to get my signature to approve the going out before they made the phone call for a volunteer, seeing that confidence and practicing interacting with an adult and asking questions was just it was beautiful to see that in action from our going out program. Students also engage with imagination, imagining where they can go to explore. If they've been studying rocks, maybe they go to a rock store and they learn about things from a different type of expert than seeing something in a museum, for example. And they practice reason, thinking about where are the different places I can find this, what are my steps to take, and put that actually into action. It also gives them the opportunities for a deeper understanding of the academic topics through real world applications by going out into the world. And then as they're in the world, practicing grace and courtesy, using those social skills, not only organizing their going out, but also interacting with experts in the field and community members, including parent volunteers. And the video talked a lot about the second plane children. So our children ages 6 through 12. One of the pieces of that stage of development is our children want to interact with others. Children in the classroom want to interact with peers and they want to interact with adults. And so it leans into that need in this stage of development and sets up a safe way for them to do so and to interact and to continue to develop that instinct. It also lets them learn from real world experience and those mistakes. As I shared the example of going the wrong way on the bus and all the learning that came from not actually getting to their destination. There's a lot of learning, even when going outs don't go as they expect. So what is our process? Next, we're going to go through an overview of the process. And so the link that I shared in the chat, and I'll share it again at the end if you didn't get it earlier, that has an overview of this process. So all that's on that document. And for any of our going out volunteers, the handout that I'm sharing, we actually have a laminated set of that in our going out backpack for volunteers. So it has all the steps, important phone numbers, and anything you could need, including a first aid kit. So you don't need to take notes. So for students, their experience starts with an idea, an inspiration they want to learn more about, like the group of upper elementary students that was interested in tornadoes. Once they get that idea, they need to do some research. They need to research where they might go, where they want to go, the cost, transportation, other things they might need in order to organize the event. And then we have a going out planning document. And that planning document includes a lot of signatures. One part of the signature is a caregiver signature. So you as a caregiver would always know if your child is attending a going out. Another part of that going out planning document, before it even gets to a caregiver, is a signature from me as the program director, so that I know about the going out. And so they have to practice that, all of the steps you would need to formally organize something. Then they arrange a chaperone. So once they have a plan, we have a list of volunteers who have submitted background checks and have updated background checks and have attended one of these trainings so that they can chaperone going outs. And they make a phone call. They have a script for that. So they might have to then take a phone call back. And once they've arranged for a chaperone, they prepare for the trip. Part of that preparation is signing out in the VES, which is our room just inside the main elementary doors. They go on their coming out, they go out on their going out and come back, and then they present their findings back to the class in whatever way makes sense. Sometimes it's just to a few peers, sometimes it's to their guide or other adults. It really depends on what they're doing. Maybe they share it at a community meeting. It really depends on what the going out is. So this is the handout that was in the chat, and I'll put it in again at the end. We're going to go over the adult steps that are in this handout, so you know what to expect to prepare for the going out, including where to get the background check, the process the day of, and then after the going out. Oh, I didn't mean to press on the form. Sorry about that. So before going out day, adults get oriented to the process, which is what you're doing right now. Complete a background check, and I'll share that link with you. Great River, as a school, we pay for background checks for volunteers. And so all you need to do is fill out the background check form and drop it off at the main office. And so just the main office when you go in, or you can send it in with your child and give it to the guide, and they can drop it off at the office. Then once that background check is done, or when you submit the background check, you can share your contact information using the going out availability form. It's just a Google form that's on that planning document where you can say, I'm interested, here's when I'm available, here's when I'm not available. And you can always resubmit that form at any time or send an email if something changes, and I can send the form to you so you can change that. Then you wait for a call from students to schedule a going out. For the students, they will call from a school phone and leave you a message to call them back. And this information's on the handout. There's a phone number. They are supposed to share that phone number, but sometimes it might be hard to hear in a message. And we have them call the front desk because there's always someone at the front desk to answer the phone. We have a couple other phones in the elementary, but they're not staffed with a person there all the time. In their message or in the phone call, students will offer a potential date for the trip. And if you're not able to go on that date, but a different date would work, just let them know. Going outs are really flexible in that way. If you're on the phone with them, make sure you ask the student names and classroom names. Sometimes they forget that part. We generally know, but with all of the pieces going on, it just helps us find that sooner, especially if you're calling back. One thing we do ask is that parents not chaperone trips that their own children are on, as it feels really different for students when they have a parent there. This is really their trip, and you are accompanying them to ensure their safety. And so having an adult chaperone that isn't a parent is really most effective to make sure that happens. So on the day of the going out, there's a picture on the board of a whiteboard with our sign out. You as the adult first sign in at our main Great River office to get your volunteer badge. And then you come down to the classroom and collect the following things. So you collect the emergency contact information for the students you're taking that day, and they'll have that in their going out form they've prepared. They might have a going out folder that has more information so that you know what the plan is for the day, what their plans are. And then we have a going out backpack prepared for you with a laminated copy of that handout. So you have emergency phone numbers and all of the steps, as well as the first aid kit. And that's a great spot to put that going out folder. So you just have that information with you. Then for the students and you, we actually sign out for events like this and smaller going outs in the VES. There's a whiteboard. That's where we also write down your phone number in case we need to get a hold of you that moment. Because students can leave through the elementary doors to leave for their going out. This is the process we use whenever we have students leave campus, whether it's leaving campus for our outdoor education class or anything else. So this fits in our regular process when we have small groups of students leave campus. For everyone, one thing that really does help after you do that VES is that we do want you to sign the students out at the main office because you're going further away from campus when you actually leave and come back, just in case there is an emergency. So you sign out at the VES and then bring all the students to the main office so that we know. And then go on the trip and have fun. If you're on the going out and you're kind of close in terms of coming home, it's okay to not sign back in at the main office. You can just go to that elementary doors if it's close to the end of the day and let myself or Amanda Erickson, our program assistant, who's always outside at the end of the day, know. She'll make sure the office knows as well that everyone is back. But that's just something to know if you're kind of tight on time at the end of the day and it's close to dismissal at 3:50. Couple guidelines and tips for adults is we're following and transporting the children. We're helping them, but we're not leading the trip. So the children, for all of our going outs, we use the city buses. We actually don't have chaperones or parents drive vans or drive their own transportation. We have city bus cards, and that's part of the planning process for students. And let the students make decisions, including mistakes. A good way to do that is asking questions, guiding by questions. You can absolutely help coach social interactions. Like in cases, sometimes when this happens, you might try. Or one way you could start saying something is if they need kind of a sentence starter for a social interactions, or in a situation like this, I might say. So thinking about kind of giving examples if it's a social expectation, but generally lean towards questions like, what might you say to that person? How might you introduce yourself? I often use the word might because it's a powerful word and you can go so many places with it. Also, as an adult, it's important to know that it's okay if their choices cause them to not finish the going out. It is important, however, to communicate the amount of time that you and they have. Hey, we have 2 hours for this going out. We have about an hour left, whatever that might be. If we need to be back at this time, that is an important communication and is a little different than asking questions. Something else that often happens in a going out is the adults you're interacting with in the community might talk to you instead of the children. And so help to redirect those adults to talk to the children instead of talking to you. And again, letting them make those decisions and mistakes. But you can ask questions for reflection to help them identify what could be done in the future. So a couple emergency and safety tips. Signing in and out at the main office with all the students so we know who is in the building is important. Like I said, at the end of the day, if you're close because of time, you can come back to those elementary doors. Take a first aid kit. It's in the going out backpack. And of course, intervene for safety. That is always something we would want you to do. In the materials we give you, it has the important contact information, these 3 phone numbers for the office, our elementary program assistant, Amanda Erickson, especially if maybe you're running a little late or something's going on, you can always text her and myself. My phone number is there as well. If you're like, oh, we're running a little late because we missed our bus, there was a change in this, especially if it's going to impact the end of the day. And being able to get students to important things like lunch or their bus at the end of the day. The adult paperwork, like I said, is the background check that needs to be updated every 2 years. So if you haven't submitted a background check recently, you might need to update your background check. The availability and contact form that's in the handout, that's a Google form. And then at the end, after you're going out, there's a link for a trip feedback form that's listed in the materials that you can fill out. All right. Are there any questions? And you can put them in the Q&A